Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a Kelly Files special, What is Ailing America? I'm Megyn Kelly. With the 2016 race for the White House getting underway, we are hearing more and more about what's wrong in America and in need of being fixed. From the economy and jobs to race relations and poverty, from distrust of some media to disgust with some political leaders. Tonight, we take it all on, and we start with a remarkable story shaping up right now tonight on the campaign trail. It has now been almost 5 weeks since Hillary Clinton declared that she is running for president, and she has yet to do a single major media interview. How many times have we had to say it? She has not answered questions about her email scandal. That plot thickens tonight. I have that for you in moments. Her charitable foundation, her support for the Iraq War, her record as Secretary of State. And tonight we add something new. There is breaking news that Hillary and Bill Clinton have earned a combined $25 million in just the last year by giving roughly 100 speeches. That's a lot of money per speech. And another $5 million from Mrs. Clinton's book. $30 million at least from a candidate who is complaining about income inequality. Wouldn't you like to hear a reporter ask her about that? And so far, she is wildly unavailable to answer any questions about any of it. Trace Gallagher has put together the developing details on the Clinton cash windfall. He's got that for us now. Trace?
Megyn, we just got Hillary Clinton's disclosure form 15 minutes ago and are now kind of scanning the Clintons' various assets. We know that Hillary Clinton commands up to $200,000 per speech, Bill Clinton up to $700,000, and we have confirmed that from those 100 speeches you talked about, the Clintons took in $25 million over just the past 16 months. Add the $25 million to the $5 million that Hillary Clinton made in her book Hard Choices, and the Clintons already make more than 99.9% of the population. The Clintons also list a number of security investments and life insurance policies worth millions more. Now, remember, Hillary Clinton does not have to disclose personal assets like homes, cars, or federal retirement plans. And other assets in stocks and companies only have to be disclosed within a broad range, not specific numbers. Experts say the disclosure forms are intended to guard against conflicts of interest or potential conflicts. They are not meant to establish a candidate's net worth, although the Clintons' wealth will certainly come up in the campaign, considering she is positioning herself as the champion for the struggling middle class. The Clintons are clearly moving up the financial ladder as well. In her last disclosure, before she left the State Department, Hillary Clinton declared that she and her husband had made at least $16.7 million in 2012. That, of course, was before she hit the speaking circuit. The Clintons' effective federal tax rate in 2014 was 30%. That tax information, by the way, is not part of the financial disclosure form, but the Clintons are clearly trying to get the information out there as a way of pointing out that they pay taxes on earned income, not invested income, though the Clintons have been criticized for giving highly paid speeches for key players in the financial industry. Hillary Clinton, by the way, claims they were dead broke when they left the White House in 2001. The same year, they made roughly $12 million. Megyn.
Wow. Trace, thank you. In poll after poll, when Americans are asked what ails America, their number one complaint is dissatisfaction with government. And this Clinton controversy captures some of that. As she continues to dodge the media week after week, the polls show a growing number of voters think she is dishonest. And remember, as we get these reports about her income, Mitt Romney talked with reporters all the time, and he was still repeatedly hammered on the tiniest of his financial details.
When you say you left Bain to run the Olympics, why was your name still on these documents, and why didn't you clear this up sooner? Weren't you concerned at some point that these filings might become
guilty of walking while black stains the heart of black children who feel as if no matter what he does, he'll always be under suspicion.
You thought you'd sweep it under the rug. You thought there'd be no limelight.
Joining me now, Ricky Kleeman, host of In the Line of Fire, which premieres on Investigation Discovery this Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern. And not for nothing, but also a personal inspiration to me. Thank you. It was your book, Fairy Tales Can Come True, that actually led me down to a path eventually that got me in television. Ricky Kleeman and Dr. Phil, you've met two of my greatest inspirations past couple of weeks.
Listen, I always like to say that I'm the person who convinced Megyn Kelly to go on TV, and that gets me more points than anything else.
It's true. I went to see her at Northwestern Law School give a speech. She had a rock, kick-butt legal career. And now this is personal for you because you wound up falling in love, having a fairy tale marriage, which you still do, with the man who is now the police commissioner of New York City, Bill Bratton.
Indeed.
He helped clean up New York City. He went out to LA and did it. And now he is back here again. And you have taken issue with the way that police are being portrayed, and you're actually doing something about it.
I had an inspiration to do a TV show about Medal of Valor winners, Medal of Honor winners. Valor is bravery. That there are police officers all across this country, in cities and towns. They run toward danger instead of from it. They want to help people. It's not a job. It's not even a profession. It's a calling. And that all of these police officers who feel that way in small towns or big cities are being painted with the same broad brush, that they are said to be brutal, they're said to be racist, they are said to be corrupt. And it's because of a few very bad, very unfortunate, very tragic incidents that should have never happened, where cops have acted badly, but that the rest of the police are now really under fire in a way from the public and the media.
So Commissioner Bratton just had to release this week, instantly, videotape of a police shooting. It was a black man who was shot by the police because he was attacking a police officer with a hammer. And Mr. Bratton came out and said, look, here it is. So you can see that this is the perpetrator going after the police. Then he runs screen left and the cops come after him and shoot him. Look, he's trying to hit the female cop in the head with a hammer, and he does it, and then he gets shot. Twitter lights up. Another white cop kills a black man. This is outrageous. He has to release this immediately to say, people, he was trying to attack a cop with a hammer.
Not only that, this was a man who had gone on a rampage of attacking other people in Manhattan with that hammer.
It's like a presumption of guilt now against the cops.
Well, I think it has become a presumption of guilt. And one of the things that happens when the presumption shifts is that you have to put information out to the public to be able to let that presumption shift again. Because one of the things that we do know is that the pendulum swings across this country about attitudes, not only about police, but attitudes about law and order. So back in the 60s, into the 70s, there were protests against police about brutality, about racism. And then for a long time, things were calmer. After 9/11, certainly in New York, but I think in most places throughout this country, then the police became the heroes. I remember 2 police officers coming in shortly after September 11th when I was anchoring at Court TV, and they walked in to give me a particular thing I had asked for. And when they walked in, the entire newsroom got up and applauded. Wow. And it was really a miraculous moment. And now we're back to the 60s or 70s, where suddenly all cops, or maybe it's not so sudden, maybe it's been building for a long time, but all cops are being painted with this brutal image. So when I was inspired to tell the story of Sergeant Hector Feliciano, who is one of the 3 Medal of Valor winners in this documentary, Line of Fire, that when I wanted to tell his story was when my husband was the police chief in LA, and I saw this story on the news, and Hector Feliciano goes running into the line of fire.
Let's see the tape while she's talking about it.
It's a standoff at the Mexican consulate. And a maniac, I mean truly a maniac, has his arm around a woman who happens to be pregnant. He is dragging her out of the consulate, and they have people running for cover. I mean, people are fleeing the consulate. And Hector Feliciano has to make a split-second decision of, can he save the hostage? Can he take a shot while all of these other people are around? When does he have the ability, that moment, that quick moment, to be able to save this woman's life? I will never forget seeing that as long as I live on the news. I went to his Valor ceremony, and it was the first time that he was reunited with this woman whose life he saved, and she called him her angel. Wow. And I will never forget it as long as I live. So I said, I want to tell that story.
So I want the viewers to understand. So this is on Investigation Discovery, and it airs Sunday, May 17th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time.
That is correct.
In the Line of Fire. It's hosted by Ricky Kleeman, an inspiration to me, and you might consider her book, too. Fairy Tales Can Come True. I'm sure you can get it still.
At least on Kindle.
And it's a beautiful story about a strong, fierce female lawyer who goes out there and kicks some bottom, and then she goes into TV. She gets a big job at Court TV, and then love comes in the form of Bill Bratton, and she's still kicking, and I love it. Good for you.
Megan.
Love your strength. Love your story.
Thank you.
Ricky Kleeman, 9 p.m., Investigation Discovery, Sunday night. Well, some of these police protests go hand in hand with a sense that race relations in America are getting worse right now. Up next, see what Mrs. Obama said about that controversy just this week as Rich Lowry joins us next.
The folks who crossed the street in fear of their safety, the clerks who kept a close eye on us in all those department stores, the people at formal events who assumed we were the help.
Well, racism is getting a lot of attention recently as polls show a growing number of Americans think race relations are getting worse. In remarks to graduates at the historically black Tuskegee University this past weekend, First Lady Michelle Obama told the audience, no matter how much you accomplish, some folks will only see you for the color of your skin.
And my husband and I know how frustrating that experience can be. We've both felt the sting of those daily slights throughout our entire lives. The folks who crossed the street in fear of their safety, the clerks who kept a close eye on us in all those department stores, the people at formal events who assumed we were the help, and those who have questioned our intelligence, our honesty, even our love of this country. And I know that these little indignities are obviously nothing compared to what folks across the country are dealing with every single day. Those nagging worries that you're going to get stopped or pulled over for absolutely no reason. The fear that your job application will be overlooked because of the way your name sounds.
Rich Lowry is a National Review editor and a Fox News contributor, and you listened to that and said it was off-key and, quote, characteristically self-pitying. What do you mean by that?
Yes. Well, first of all, I'm not a black woman, so full disclosure, I don't know what all that she's experienced, and there's a lot about the speech that I liked. But this passage in particular and the things around it, I think were off-key. She's focusing on really minor slights and insults, some of which are inadvertent. And this is a person who's at the top of our national life. She graduated from Princeton. She graduated from Harvard Law School. She is celebrated almost everywhere in our culture for her beauty, her poise, and her public spiritedness. What does she have really to complain about?
A lot, if you listen to that speech. And she went on to say, as potentially the first African-American First Lady, I was also the focus of another set of questions in addition to those subjected, that other First Ladies were subjected to, like Laura Bush and Hillary Clinton and Nancy Reagan, saying, was I too loud, too angry, too emasculating? Was I too soft, too much of a mom, enough of a career woman? I hate to tell her, but those same questions have been asked about many of the former First Ladies. Does anybody remember what happened to Teresa Heinz Kerry, who was a potential First Lady, and what happened to Hillary Clinton?
Of course.
I mean, of course, many of those questions were asked about that.
I went back and looked at the favorable, unfavorable ratings for First Ladies, and Nancy Reagan was much lower, as far as I can tell, during the entirety of Reagan's presidency than Michelle Obama. So she's playing into this nefarious notion that there was this racial resistance to the Obamas in 2008, when I think almost everyone of goodwill in the country, putting his politics aside, was delighted at the symbolic step the country was taking by electing the first African-American president. And she comes into...
there were a fringe few who weren't, but they don't represent the heart of America.
And you look at her, she comes into office with a 68-18 favorable, unfavorable rating. And it's still, after all this controversy, she's married to one of the most controversial guys in the country. Her approval rating still in the mid or high 60s.
When you listen to her, it did not sound like somebody who is as beloved as she is. On the cover of Vogue, to March 2009 Vogue, with the caption, "The First Lady the world has been waiting for," you point out she's the 5th most admired woman on the planet, just below Queen Elizabeth, and yet up there, really sounding victimized. In particular, she looks back at that magazine cover of her showing with the big afro and the machine gun, but actually it was It was a magazine article defending her.
Right. It's a New Yorker cover that's meant to spoof her critics and make her critics look like they're nuts. And what she was talking about in the speech, although she didn't use the phrase, is this trendy word, microaggressions. These inadvertent insults or acts of offensiveness. You hear this word a lot on college campuses. And I think there are two problems with it. One, it's not just one set of people that experiences insults. All of us, through our whole lives, we suffer little indignities, we suffer little humiliations, we've all been bullied or picked upon or rejected or underestimated.
Many of us have been pulled over by police while we're in our cars, even when we weren't speeding. Correct. Many of us have been followed around the department store because they think you're going to shoplift. It's not just a skin color thing. Sometimes it's a young woman thing. You know, they think that there's whatever.
Right.
But, I mean, there's no denying, however, that there is racial profiling by some in the country, and I'm sure she has been subjected to it.
Yes. But again, you look at the trajectory of the country. We've gone from chattel slavery, a great national shame, to Jim Crow, another national shame, to the thing that we're really complaining about here is people occasionally being rude or making innocent but offensive mistakes. That's an enormous trajectory of progress. And look, Michelle herself, I think, if properly understood, has a great story to tell. She has a very powerful story about her father that she told in the 2012 convention, who had this debilitating illness, struggles to go to work every day because of that's what he considered a dignified man, his duty to himself and to his family. And he makes it possible for his daughter, he just had a high school education, I believe, to go to Princeton and go to Harvard. That is the American story. That's why this country is so glorious, and that's what she should have been telling those kids.
Rich, it's great to see you.
Thanks, Megan.
Well, there was a new poll out this week showing that the number of Christians in America is falling. And our next guest explains what that means for this country. Showing the number of Christians in America is falling. Over the last 7 years, the percentage of people who describe themselves as Christian fell about 8 points from 78.4% to 70.6%. Joining me now, senior pastor of the First Baptist Church in Dallas, Texas, and Fox News contributor, Dr. Robert Jeffress. Good to see you again tonight, sir. And so what do you make of that decline?
Well, I think the decline is real. And Megan, it's having an effect not just on Christians, but all of America as well. And here's why. For the first 200 years of our country, there was a basic Judeo-Christian spiritual foundation of our nation, and not everybody agreed with it, but everybody benefited from it. That foundation provided a common understanding of what's right and wrong. It gave a compelling reason to do what is right. But then about 50 years ago, we tried a secular experiment that said, let's try to be good without God, without religion, and I suggest that's been a dismal failure. You know, somebody said socialism works until you run out of other people's money. Well, secularism works until you run out of other people's faith. And as we see this decline in the number of Christians and the diminishing of their influence, I think we're running out of faith and we're reaping the consequences as a nation.
That's fascinating. I mean, that's a good quote. And so, I mean, how does it manifest that, I mean, in the deterioration we see in how we treat each other, in who we idolize, in what we choose to put on television and watch with, I mean, I hate to sound like I'm about 200, but half-naked girls. I mean, like, seriously, it's really in your face everywhere you turn. You try to raise a kid in a G-rated world, and you can't because the world seems to be R-rated everywhere.
That's right. Okay, it's Friday night. Let's talk about sex and how this impacts Christianity and society. Look, for thousands of years, Christianity and Judaism have taught that sex should be between a man and a woman in a marriage relationship, and any deviation from that, not just gay marriage, but adultery, premarital sex, unbiblical divorce is wrong and has consequences. Now, as a culture and individuals, we can reject that, but we also experience the consequences of that rejection. I mean, here on Fox News, we're always talking about the societal cost of the breakdown of the family, teen pregnancies, unwed moms, absentee fathers. That is an effect. Now, I know what people are saying out there. They're saying, Pastor, are you saying we ought to start teaching morality from the Bible in the schools? That's exactly what I'm saying. You're a Supreme Court junkie, Megan. You know this, but in 1844, the Supreme Court in the Girard case said, and I'm quoting almost word for word, why may not the Bible, especially the New Testament, be taught in the schools as divine revelation? Where are the purest principles of morality found more than in the New Testament? Now, we say, oh, we've evolved from that in our legal thinking. I suggest we've devolved away from that, and we're reaping the consequences.
I am feeling terrible because, you know, I thought we were gonna blame this all on Kim Kardashian, and now you're talking about premarital sex and you know, gay sex, and I feel like I'm going to have to go confess because I'm guilty of one of those.
Well, you did that to Mike Huckabee a few weeks ago, didn't you?
It's always great to see you. Thank you for your thoughts tonight.
Thank you.
Janice Dean, next on How America Has Forgotten to Be Civil. We had a fun time during the break. So hardly a day goes by without some media story about bullying, people being mean, downright rude. And in a survey done just a couple of years ago, the pollsters even found that we are forgetting the basics like please and thank you. Janice Dean is here with some thoughts on that. She's our senior meteorologist, and she's done some research on this. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, and you're welcome. I got 4 words for you. Penn Station rush hour. Uncivil behavior everywhere,
the
abounding.
Humanity.
At rush hour, incredible. I think I counted, not even on these hands, how many times there was uncivil behavior. Pushing, the New York City transit system has an advertising campaign of how you should behave on subways. Have you seen this?
No.
No spreading. You know what that is?
Oh, yes, I have.
No
seen.
spreading.
Yes,
so men like actually taking up a couple of seats with their legs,
right? Let's be specific.
And and there are actual signs that tell people to make room for the pregnant ladies and the elderly.
Yes.
Like, get up, silly.
They need to be told that now.
Right. So what is going on?
I see it in New York City too, and it's not just New York, but New York. You know, like you give the taxi driver an extra tip. You know, you give them like an extra good tip, and they don't even say thank you sometimes. Like you're showing them like I want to give you a reward for a nice, you know, drive, whatever. Nothing. It's just like, get out.
I think people are too rushed. We live in New York, and it's all about next camp fair. So get out while the getting's good. And I think you know, we're parents. I'm trying to instill in my children, please, thank you, good behavior.
Look in the eye.
Right. And you know what? We are inundated with this all of the time. People are so disconnected. And it was at the playground just a couple of days ago where my one kid was misbehaving. Right. And the parent was like, oh, I'm taking. And I went up to the little boy and said, hey, you know, you behave yourself. And then she saw that in the corner of her eye, and she was like, what are you saying to my child? And I'm like, but you're on this all day long.
Now, can I just say I am a witness to this, because I've been to the playground many times with Janice. Our kids are like cousins, and don't mess with her kids.
Oh, no.
She will go Rebecca De Mornay.
Yes.
You remember, was that movie? You remember that movie?
It was a bad
Hand That Rocks the Cradle.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you remember
Hand
that.
That Rocks the Cradle on your kid.
Totally. I think it starts with the parenting. I really do, especially nowadays. You gotta instill good values.
My parents never would have let me get away with bad behavior, and I don't let my kids get away with it either. To adults or to children, I stop and I say, look in the eye, say thank you, say, you know, introduce yourself. It doesn't matter. But I think you're right about the devices, because we feel disconnected.
Totally.
And we have our own world on here. Now, what did you think of my last segment with Dr. Jeffress?
I thought we need to replay it, just so that we could. Well, just for certain segments.
Just in the future between the two of us.
Yes.
Because people just assume one thing, but really the truth is that Janice and I have been very open about the fact that we've slept together. However, we actually slept. We slept.
Well, that was after we braided each other's hair and had the pillow fight.
Oh, I was asleep. That explains a lot about how I woke up in the morning.
In my dreams, right? Yes, it happened.
All right, we got to go. It's Friday night.
Is that it?
I've lost total control.
What?
Great to see you. Well, after looking at a list of things that could be better in America, up next, a story that'll make your day. Well, we spent the bulk of this hour looking at what is ailing America, so we wanted to end on a brighter note. Trace Gallagher now with a story about a young man and his flag. Trace?
Megan Peyton Robinson is a senior at York County High School in South Carolina. On the bed of his truck flies the American flag. But when he got to school on Wednesday morning, a school administrator said he had a problem with the flags, saying people complained, so without asking the school, they simply took them down. Peyton said he was aggravated. Listen.
I'd understand if it was a Confederate flag or something that might offend somebody. I wouldn't do that. But an American flag, that's our country's flag. I have every right to do it.
But word got out and Peyton Robinson got big-time support. Dozens of students and community members driving to the high school with flags flying on their cars and trucks. One person counted 70 vehicles. Listen.
I fought for my country. When I hear that you can't fly the flag, it makes my blood run red, and my blood is red.
The school later said this had nothing to do with symbolism or lack of patriotism. The school was simply worried that the flags might block the view of other drivers, even though the Highway Patrol says the flags are perfectly legal. Here's the school principal.
All this is about safety. It's nothing to do with patriotism. I was talking earlier, you know, it kind of hurts a little bit when your patriotism gets called into question.
But because of the peaceful patriotic protest, the school will now allow the flags to fly as long as they do not block the view of other drivers. School kind of backing off a little bit there.
Good move. Trace, thank you. So this time last week, I was telling you that we were going to have an exclusive sit-down with Jeb Bush, and you should tune in on Monday night lest you miss some news. And if you miss Monday night, you miss the news that we made with Jeb Bush. Now I tell you that on Monday night, we will have a sit-down with Governor Chris Christie. And you might want to set your DVR lest you miss the news. In the meantime, you can go to Twitter at Megyn Kelly, follow me there, and also go to Facebook.com/The Kelly File. I'm taking your thoughts. I want to know what you think is interesting, what you want to hear from Governor Christie, and I'll use that as I prepare for the interview. Actually, the feedback has been quite interesting, so let us know what you think. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great weekend. I'm Megyn Kelly, and this is The Kelly File.